Hello everyone, it's Heather and I'm filming this video today from cabin 8128, perfectly lovely cabin on Royal Caribbean's Ovation of the Seas. And I want to talk to you about a couple of things in this video that I have ideas about from my experience here in the first couple days of our cruise on Ovation of the Seas. One is the differences between mainstream cruising and premium or luxury cruising, and also things that the mainstream cruise lines don't necessarily do a good job of informing people about, but there's a reason that they don't. And then a third thing is kind of how I am a very helpful, friendly person and end up helping a lot of people when I'm traveling just in general, but have especially had to do it or found myself in the position to be able to help people on this cruise. Okay, I want to actually tackle that one first because this is kind of funny. All right, so on this particular cruise, I am on the cruise with just me and my son Ben, okay? And my son Ben, he's changed a little bit over time. When he was younger, he had a little bit more interest in participating in filming the videos for the channel and things like that. He's kind of lost that now, and he actually flat out told me on this trip that he really doesn't want me to film. So I already try to take great pains to have filming take up as little time as possible of our family travels together so that it's not intrusive, it's not disruptive of our experience. I've worked really hard to do a better job of that as we've traveled and as I've had this channel for longer. I've had this channel now for 7-8 years. And I really do try to minimize the amount of time I spend filming and be as discreet about it as possible so that it doesn't, interfere with our experience, but also it's not intrusive to the people around us. Ben used to be a lot more tolerant of it, but on this trip, he's just flat out just doesn't seem to want me to film at all. So instead of doing daily vlogs on this cruise like I was planning on doing, which I actually don't think would have worked anyway because I'm not doing a heck of a lot on this cruise actually. So unless you want hours of footage of me sitting in my on my balcony or sitting in a chair somewhere, reading or doing things, relaxing, I don't think it's going to be very interesting content for you. So I'm ending up having to make videos like this that are more informative for you from one spot, which is totally fine. The other thing that's interesting about my kids, and this is my 2 younger kids, I can't really speak for my oldest because he has not traveled with me as much in recent years, and definitely not since I've had the channel. Megan is very positive and totally into helping me make the videos. She will help contribute. You've seen it if you've watched my channel for a while. She will contribute to the videos. She has definite strong opinions about things. She makes observations about stuff when we travel like I do. She has lots of thoughts. She wants to share things that she finds helpful for people. And she's totally an active participant in filming the videos. She will go on there and tell you what she thinks and tell you things she observed and experiences she had. She will even take the camera sometimes or on her own with her phone or whatever, film stuff for me when I'm not with her so that I can add it to the video later to contribute to the quality of the video. So Megan very actively participates in things, okay? So that's one way that they diverge. Megan's all for the filming and actively participates in the filming. Ben doesn't want to have anything, he'll say a word here and there, but doesn't really want me to film even at all, okay? But interestingly, when it comes to helping people out and about when we're traveling, and if I see an opportunity where I can tell someone something or help them out, Ben's all for it. He thinks that's nice as can be. It's happened 6 times already on this cruise. We're only on day 2, where I've had an opportunity to actually assist someone because no crew member was around to help them. And they legitimately didn't know, where is this thing? What do I do? How do I do this or whatever? And I can step in and help them and Ben's all for it. And he thinks that's nice as can be and friendly, and he'll even talk to people and say, oh yeah, you need to do this, and and somebody we're talking to is like, yeah, good luck with that, and he'll talk to people, and he's all for me talking to people. But Megan is the other way around on that. She doesn't want me to talk to people. She doesn't, she's okay with a little bit of chit chat with other passengers and stuff or crew or whatever, about neutral topics or something about the ship or the experience or whatever, but she doesn't want me to help people, and she especially doesn't want me to talk about her. This actually came up on our last cruise when we were playing a game show. It was one of the questions, and I'll leave a link to it up here for you so you know what I'm talking about. But she's like, Mom, don't talk to people. Or like, I'll see someone is struggling with something and I'm like, oh, I should help them, I should tell. She's like, Mom, don't talk to them, just leave them alone, they're fine. And so I just think that's so funny that they diverge on these two areas so dramatically. And you'd think they'd be consistent, you know, like Ben would don't talk to people and don't film versus talk to people and film, but it's not. They each are good with one and not with the other, so go figure. Okay, but on this cruise, something has come up that brings me to the other thing, which is the difference between mainstream and premium cruising. And so I'll come to that in the last part. But here, let me tell you about some of the things I've had to, not had to, but that I have taken upon myself to assist people with, okay? So just today, 2 times, I've helped another passenger who was struggling with something. Because I just happened to be there, I heard them having an issue, or I saw them having an issue, and so I stepped in and helped them, okay? One was, we were sitting and lounging in 270 at the back of the ship, looking out the windows and, you know, doing stuff on our phones and things like that. There was I think it was a mom and daughter, but like the daughter was older than me and the mom was quite elderly and in a wheelchair. And she wanted to go to the library. The library on this ship is on the 2nd level of 270, and it appeared to them that there was no way to get up there except for these stairs. Announcement. Oh, shoot. It's a man overboard announcement. 1 second, I'm just going to check on Ben. The elderly lady in the wheelchair wanted to go to the library and be there for a while the daughter went to do something else, but they couldn't figure out how she was going to get up there. And they had apparently tried to ask someone, like someone on the crew, like how to get up there or whatever, and they either didn't know or they didn't explain it right, or there was a language barrier or something. But then I stood up and I said, ma'am, there actually is an elevator just around the corner here, and to go up to the 2nd floor of 270 and to the library. And she's like, oh, is there really? And I said, yeah, it's right around here. And she says, can you actually show me? And I said, sure, absolutely. So I got up from my seat, I took them, and I had her follow me, and I showed her right where it was kind of tucked out in a corner, but I had seen it the day before, and I showed her where the lift was to go upstairs, and she thanked me profusely. She's like, oh, thank you so much. I never would have found that. And so, you know, that was a way that I could help someone. Nobody else was around. She couldn't find a crew member to ask, you know, or hadn't had success with that. And then earlier this morning, I was walking past the photo studio, and there was I think they were a Japanese couple, older couple, and I don't think they really spoke English. They were trying to access their photos. It's their screens, and you look at them on the screens, and next to the screen, like on the side, is a little card reader for you to, you know, tap your key card onto. And the gentleman was trying to tap his card because it said tap your card. And so, I mean, they probably had limited English ability, but and he was trying to tap his card to the actual monitor, to the screen. And I just saw this as I was walking by, and nobody was around. Nobody was manning the photo studio at that time. There was no crew there. And so I stopped and I just smiled and I said, sir, you want to tap it here. You know, I kind of gestured and showed him, like, tap your card here. And they were like, oh, you know, they were like so relieved that I showed them what to do because they couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. You know, so that was another thing. And in both of those 2 instances, what I would say, and I've had this occur on other Royal Caribbean cruises before too, the issue was one of staffing, and that there was no one around for the person who needed help to ask. And so not only did they not know the answer, they didn't know what to do or if there was help for them, but there was no crew member visible anywhere for them to ask. And you would have to have gone some distance somewhere on the ship to find somebody to help you, you know, and they might not even be the right person to help you. And that kind of goes along with one thing that I've got kind of concerns about on the more mainstream cruise lines. And so this would be like Royal Caribbean, Carnival, MSC, Norwegian Cruise Line would be the main ones, okay? And that is, I think they've really been cutting costs, especially since the pandemic. And one of the ways that they're cutting costs is they're reducing their staff. And so you'll see things like, you know, they reduced service to your staterooms down to once a day. And not only did they reduce it from twice a day to once a day, but they also cut the staff, the housekeeping staff, in addition to that. So not only is your room only being serviced once a day, which for some people they don't mind. I much prefer it to be twice a day, but in addition to that, they assigned more rooms to each room attendant. Our room attendant, when we talked to him just a little while ago in the hallway, he explained to us, he said, I have this whole distance, this long, this far down here and this far down here. And so he said, it's a long ways. I have lots and lots of rooms. So if you don't see me and you need something, I might be way down the hall, is basically what he was saying, in another room. And so they've got even more rooms to service in the same amount of time. And that's something that I've seen a lot of people complaining about, that they've really cut staff. The second place that you'll see this is in the dining room, in the main dining room. And I have heard a little bit to a lesser extent, although I haven't really experienced this myself, in like bars and lounges and other food and drink venues like that. And that is, the staff in the dining rooms seem rushed. They seem like there's not enough of them. They seem like they're really hurrying. You'll see the head waiters going around and really kind of chastising them sometimes, like, get over there and get to that person. Even this morning at breakfast, I saw my server get chastised by the head waiter because he hadn't come to take my order yet, and he noticed that I was still sitting there with my menu. It was not an unreasonable amount of time, in my opinion, but I've seen that a lot on recent Royal Caribbean cruises, where the staff in the dining room seems flustered or hurried and like they're getting yelled at because they're not going fast enough. So I think that's a result of cost cutting on the part of the cruise line, and the fact that there's not as much staff as there used to be, and so fewer people are there to complete the tasks and get things done in a timely manner and provide the level of service that the guests expect. So that's something that I think is a negative trend in the cruise industry, among mainstream cruise lines, like I said. Something that's different about the mainstream cruise lines that you won't see on premium cruise lines, or at least not as much in my experience. And then when we're talking about premium cruise lines, again, the mainstream cruise lines would be like Royal Caribbean, Carnival, Norwegian Cruise Line, and MSC. Some of the examples of premium cruise lines would be Disney Cruise Line, Princess, Celebrity, Virgin Voyages. There's probably some more that I'm not thinking of right now, but those would be some examples of premium cruise lines. But like, for example, Royal Caribbean, Celebrity Cruise Line is owned by Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean is their mainstream offering. Celebrity Cruise Lines is their premium offering. The Carnival Corporation owns a ton of cruise lines. In the United States, Carnival is their mainstream offering. Princess is one of their premium offerings. Holland America Line is another one of their premium offerings. Okay, owned by Carnival Corporation, but still independent cruise lines themselves, more premium. All right, I've cruised on mainstream cruise lines, I've cruised on premium cruise lines. I have yet to cruise on a luxury cruise line. These would be smaller things like Silver Sea, Oceania, things like that. I haven't cruised on any of those yet. I hope to someday, but I'm just going to be talking about kind of the difference between mainstream cruising and premium cruising. One of the things I noticed right away when I got on this ship, now as I'm on the cruise, anytime I take a Royal Caribbean cruise, I always start out with this feeling a little bit, and then as I'm on the cruise, the ship kind of warms to me, it grows on me. I start to have a little bit more fun the longer I'm on the cruise. But especially since I just took a Disney cruise less than 3 months ago, I really love Disney Cruise Line. I love it very, very much. And even I would say the difference between Holland America, which I took last 2 years ago, and Royal Caribbean, there is a noticeable difference in feel between premium cruising and mainstream cruising. And part of what that difference in feel is the staffing thing, like I said. Ilana from Life Well Cruised made an excellent video just recently about this, and I'm actually going to link that video up here because she did such a good job of explaining All these little things that you might not think about that kind of distinguish premium cruising from mainstream cruising. And if you don't know what they are, or you've never cruised on a premium cruise line, you probably wouldn't notice. But if you have cruised on premium cruise lines before, you do notice. And you might even, like, if there's been some time since you've been on it, you might not even realize what it is you're missing. You might not even remember, why doesn't this feel exactly the same? Because it's still a very positive, lovely experience on mainstream cruise lines too. I'm still having a very nice time, a very positive experience. Everything's spotlessly clean. The service is still very, very good. The food is really good. But there's just like an additional level of great when you just go that little bit step up. And Ilana does a really good job of describing it in that video. And so that's a little bit of what I feel whenever I get on a Royal Caribbean cruise, especially if my last cruise prior to that was a Disney cruise, which it often is because I kind of tend to go back and forth, like alternate. And then maybe I'll throw another cruise line in there in between. But I always have like kind of this sinking feeling right away of, wish I was on Disney. I do. And I guess if I had my way, I would probably always go on Disney, but I would miss out on some valuable experiences both for myself and for the channel too, and for my viewers if I only went on Disney all the time. So just kind of that element of a step up in service and things like that is nice to have. And if you can do that, and if you can afford it and everything, although prices, you know, it really depends. I mean, it's very easy for a Royal Caribbean cruise to be more expensive than a cruise on a premium cruise line. It all depends on your dates, how long is the cruise, how many people are going, what kind of stateroom you get, all of that. But that's just something that I noticed, again, when I got on this ship, like, just like when my last Royal Caribbean cruise before this was on Utopia of the Seas, and when I first got on this, we were looking over at Disney Wish docked in Port Canaveral, and I was thinking to myself, I really wish I was on that, you know? So, I mean, it's just kind of a lingering feeling I have whenever I go on a mainstream cruise line. The other thing, though, that you really need to know, and this is something that goes with what I was saying about they don't inform the guests of this very well, and there's a reason that they don't, and that is you can go on a mainstream cruise line cruise and never spend an extra penny other than your gratuities, okay, which you can prepay before your cruise. I could come on this cruise and literally not have a single dime be charged to my credit card that I put on for my onboard expenses. Not a penny. I have done it. You do not need to spend any additional money on a mainstream cruise line. You don't. But they make you feel like you do, okay? They so push things that cost extra that they make you think that you're not getting the full experience unless you pay for the extra things. I walked past people this morning who were in the hallway and asking a crew member, what's that down there? And he said to them, that's the main dining room. And they didn't know what it was. They didn't know the main dining room was a thing. They didn't know that the main dining room, which is completely included in your cruise and complimentary and an excellent dining experience, they didn't know that that was an option. They didn't even know it existed. And I think that happens a lot to people on some of these mainstream cruise lines because they so heavily advertise their specialty dining, their extra charge dining, all these restaurants, that you think that you have to go to those, which all cost extra and are not included in the price of your cruise. I have now 3 times gone to extra charge specialty restaurants and have disliked them all. I have not enjoyed any of the experiences. I've been to Wonderland and Jamie's Italian, which Ben liked it okay. I was disappointed. I wasn't thrilled. It was slow service. I didn't really like the food. And it was expensive. It was $25 each plus an 18% automatic gratuity. So it was $69 if we each got a Coke. It was $69 for us to eat in there, and it was far less quality and service. The server was fantastic, but the service was very slow, which I'll blame on the kitchen. It was a far less quality experience, in my opinion, than what we had for dinner last night in the main dining room or breakfast this morning. So it doesn't make any sense to me to pay extra to go to specialty dining. It's almost like a scam. It really feels like a scam. Oh, you need to get a specialty dining package. You need to pay this much more to go to all these specialty dining restaurants, when actually the service and the food, I found, in my opinion, is better in the main dining room, which is included and I already paid for, and I don't have to pay anything extra. I've also eaten in Palo on Disney Cruise Line, didn't like it. And I've also eaten in Wonderland, which we hated so much on Royal Caribbean that we walked out and went back to the main dining room. We showed up for dinner in the main dining room an hour and a half late, and our beautiful, wonderful servers in the main dining room still served us dinner. And we had a much better dinner experience in the main dining room. This is one example of the things that you don't need to pay extra for. You don't need to pay extra for drinks. You don't need a drink package. You don't need a soda package. If you do the math, you know, if I have 1 or 2 sodas a day, it's still going to be hundreds of dollars less than what it would cost me to buy a soda package. So you don't need to be buying that extra stuff. Plenty of stuff is included. Water, lemonade, iced tea, coffee. It's all free. You don't need to pay extra. Okay, so unless you absolutely have to have soda or alcohol, I mean, maybe you do, maybe you want that, but you're still probably going to find that buying each drink individually is going to be way less expensive than buying a drinks package. So I see people all the time that are pulled into this belief that they have to spend extra. So for example, the people sitting next to us at dinner last night, they were talking about iFly and the North Star. And I had to explain to her, if you go on the North Star on a port day, the basic experience, it's free. If you go on a sea day, the extended experience, it's $40 a person. Why would I pay $40 a person to do something that I can do for free on a different day? So if you're not informed about these things and you don't realize that they're really pushing those extra charge experiences, the 2 experiences that I'm seeing them really pushing on this ship on Ovation of the Seas is the North Star experience and the iFly, the skydiving simulation. And then also something happened to us that's never happened before. The head waiter in the buffet in Windjammer came around to everybody's table and came to our table, to me and Ben, and tried to sell us a behind-the-scenes galley tour and a sushi making class. She literally walked up to us and tried to sell us these things. And she seemed kind of disappointed. You know, I told her a firm no. I said, we've done behind-the-scenes tours before. We're not interested. We've done them on Royal Caribbean. And I said, neither of us like sushi, so why would we take a sushi making class? You know, so, and she had to go away, and she seemed kind of dejected. You know, I mean, I was very pleasant and polite and friendly and everything, but she seemed pressured. Like the cruise line is expecting her to fill all these slots for these extra experiences. And if she doesn't, it's almost like she's going to get in trouble. So I don't like that aspect, that it's not just nickel and diming, but it's also like it's putting pressure on the crew, on the ships, that if they don't meet these expectations of making the cruise line more money, come on, get us the money, that they're failing at their jobs, when in truth they're providing excellent service and should be commended for the wonderful job that they're doing. If you have some experiences like this where you found out like, boy, I really didn't need to spend the money on that. There's lots of things like that. I mean, I told my kids from when they were very young, if it costs extra, the answer is no. Another thing is Wi-Fi. The lady next to me, she was astounded when I explained to her that it's free to use the Royal Caribbean app. You just have to have airplane mode on and use the free version of the ship's Wi-Fi, that you don't need to pay for Wi-Fi. And I could tell the wheels were turning in her head that why did I pay all that money for the Wi-Fi when all I needed was to be able to use this app. And she also had no idea that there's a free chat feature in the app. So there's things like this that if you don't educate yourself, and the cruise line is not putting this information forward in an obvious enough way for people to know about it, and you could be really spending a lot of money that you don't need to be. And so when I have the opportunity to inform people and like educate people around me about this, especially I feel bad when it's too late, when they've already spent the money and they realize now they didn't have to. You know, that kind of makes me feel bad. You need to be aware of these things, because the cruise line isn't going to tell you, because they really do want to make as much money off of you as possible. They want to increase your onboard spending and make it as high as possible. So watch out for that. This is on the mainstream cruise lines only. It's not like this on the premium or luxury lines. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you found it interesting or helpful at all, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. And if you don't want to miss any of my upcoming travel content, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Have a great day, everyone, and safe travels.